We all have a right to vote. We all have a right to express our opinion, right? And on deadline day in the NFL, I have an opinion and an idea I want to suggest, okay? Consider this, my platform here for the Philadelphia Eagles as we get set to go into the deadline and the second half of the season. Hugh, I think you'd agree with me on this. This season has turned the last 4 weeks, right?
Yes.
We're not a 2-2 football team trying to figure out are we any good. Now it's a 6-2 football team trying to add something maybe today to move it over the top. And sometimes in the NFL, that's exactly what happens. You had a Jay Ajayi and you win the Super Bowl. You had a Von Miller a couple years ago in Los Angeles and you win the Super Bowl. And I think it's time for Howie Roseman today to try to up the ante. And Howie Roseman to go out there and try to add something to take a team that's finding itself. On offense, they found an identity. They have star players. They have an offensive coach that seems like he's found the rhythm with the quarterback. And on defense, which we all know does matter a lot.
A little bit.
It matters a lot. They have themselves some young players that are coming into their own. They have themselves linebackers that are playing better than they have in a long time around here. The only thing that feels like it's missing from this thing really going into overdrive is one great pass rusher. And Hugh Douglas, I'm looking around the NFL today, and I'm trying to figure out where the Eagles can get that great pass rusher. And I'm looking at a mess within the NFC, and I'm saying that team is a disaster. And if they are offered the right offer, maybe they'd be willing to do something drastic. And you know where I'm looking? I'm looking to the Eagles' opponent this weekend. And I'm looking at the Dallas Cowboys. And if I'm Howie Roseman, I'm getting on the phone today with Stephen Jones and Jerry Jones, and I'm floating the offer. I can't force him to accept it, but I'm just going to say, hey, Micah Parsons is getting healthy. 2 first-round picks for Micah, in or out, and I would make the trade today. The Eagles are a team that are on the rise right now, and I look at them and I think they're one piece away on defense from being really, really good on defense. This is a player, and I know people in Philadelphia don't like him. We all think he's dorky and dopey on that podcast, but the bottom line is this. He's got 41.5 sacks in his first 3+ years. He's been hurt for the last month or so of this season, but 41.5 career sacks in 54 games. He is a great football player who has years and years and years to go in his career. I watched what the Eagles just did here with another great football player they rescued from a bad situation in Saquon Barkley. Put him here, put him in green, and look how good he has been. The Eagles should go offer the Cowboys 2 first-round picks today from Micah Parsons. Give him to Vic Fangio. Man, could you think about all the great pass rushers Fangio has had? Give him Micah Parsons, and away we go. Hugh, I'm ready to up the ante. If the Eagles want to get to the Super Bowl this year and they want to beat the Lions, the way to do it is to pressure Jared Goff. Go get Micah Parsons. Hugh Douglas, what do you think? What do you think of my crazy moment today?
I mean, first of all, you're crazy.
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't think I am.
I don't think, to be honest, when I think of Micah Parsons, I think about his playoff appearances, and I was just checking the stats, and I'm still looking through it. But I don't think he has, since he's been with that team and they've been in the playoffs, I think he also has one sack.
In what, 3 games, 4 games?
Yeah, something like that.
Sample.
Yeah, it's a small sample size and probably 6 tackles or something like that. Another thing is if Micah Parsons is that dynamic, what makes you think that the Dallas Cowboys are going to trade him in the division? That's number 2, Joe. That's probably, as a matter of fact,
you got to make a big offer.
That's probably number 1.
That's why you got to make a big offer.
But I still feel like there's no offer that you could potentially make that the Dallas Cowboys would be comfortable with to let him wreak havoc against you 2 times a year. If they think he's that special.
Maybe, but I don't know. I mean, that's why I'm making the offer. You're probably right on that, Hugh. They probably would say, no, we're not trading him in the division. But 2-1s is a big offer. I mean, most players in the NFL don't get traded for 2-1s. I think it would make them think about it because the Cowboys are headed towards no man's land. I mean, their quarterback's hurt for the next month. Their cap situation is hell. Dak Prescott's prime is probably behind him. He's in his 30s now. The Cowboys could be bad for a long time. This could give them, I don't care what they do with the picks, but I could see why they might be like, oh, maybe this is our ticket out of prison here because they've created this. They're kind of locked in all these stars and all these scrubs around them. I don't know if they take it, but I would make the offer. Man, Micah Parsons in an Eagles uniform, it would be like Saquon, but just on the defensive side of the football. Get a great player out of a bad situation and get him here today.
I don't feel like they would probably listen to the offer, but like I said, at the end of the day, you very rarely see guys that have that value that are traded in the division.
Sure, but would you do it?
Would I do it?
Yeah. If you're the Eagles, forget the Cowboys.
If I'm the Eagles, you got to throw it out there. But I don't think it would be something that the Dallas Cowboys would take serious because there's a hated rivalry between the both of us. And one thing that Shady said last week when he got traded. He talked about, Chip, if you think I'm not that valuable, trade me in the division.
Sure.
See me 2 times. He said trade me in
Yep.
the division. And you see that doesn't happen. That doesn't normally happen. You know, it happened with Deshaun Jackson. It happened with Donovan McNabb. But outside of that, you really don't trade guys that you deem valuable. Not saying that, whatever. But you don't really trade guys that you deem valuable in the division. You don't want to see that kind of drama 2 times a year. You don't want to see that.
I agree. It's rare, and that's why the offer is significant. I mean, most teams don't ever offer up multiple ones. I'd be willing to do it. I mean, it's one of the biggest trades the Eagles, in terms of what they're giving up, could possibly make. 2 ones is an enormous amount. I think this player is worth it. 215-592-9494. I'm looking at it from a perspective of the Eagles' reality looks like it's changed the last month. They've got a chance to make a run. And I'm trying to think where they can improve today. The deadline is this afternoon, late this afternoon. Where can they improve? I don't think any player, the Raiders already said they're not trading Max Crosby. The Cleveland Browns already said they're not trading Myles Garrett. So we got to remove them from the mix. Or who's next? And I'm looking at a losing team in Dallas who just lost their quarterback. If the Cowboys have any sense, they'll listen on a potential Parsons deal today. And if I'm Howie Roseman, I'm calling. I'm calling right now, and I'm saying take my next 2 ones. Like this year's one should be in the 20s at the bare minimum, right? There should be a playoff team. And then I'll worry about next year when I get to it. 215-592-9494. That's how you hop aboard. If you're the Eagles, if you're Howie, would you trade 2-1 for Micah Parsons? I would do it in a second. All right, let's hear yesterday Dan Orlovsky on ESPN talking about the idea of the Cowboys. They should start listening right now on Parsons because their season's probably over.
The Cowboys need to ask the very real question, do they become sellers very quickly? They got about 24 hours to do it. Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb account for 46% of their cap next year, about $120 million. There's no way to rebuild this roster without picks. If that goes on IR, they got to really kind of ask the question of, do they trade Micah Parsons? Can they trade DeMarcus Lawrence?
Whoa.
Can they trade Zach Martin? Can they trade Brandon Cooks? I know that sounds extreme, but this is not a good football team right now. It's certainly not going to be better without Dak Prescott.
He's right. I mean, he is dead right.
Dan Orlovsky's been on fire the last couple of days.
He's dead right.
Hot takey.
They should move him.
Hot takey.
They're in trouble. They should move him right now. And I don't know how many teams. Hugh, you make a good point. I don't know if they'd want to trade him in the division. They probably wouldn't. But I also don't know many teams that would offer 2 first-round picks to get a seat at the table.
You got to come up with something big.
Yeah,
I get what you're saying.
You got to put your best offer out there. 215-592-9494. All right, let's get Kyle's take on this because I could see the smoke coming out of his ears. And then we'll hear Herman Edwards yesterday on ESPN Radio also chiming in on the situation, which could become one quickly here. By the way, Dak Prescott was put on IR this morning. He's out for the next 4 games. The Cowboys are dead. I mean, that's a dead football team, and I want to get their best player. Kyle Quinn, would you trade a pair of ones for Micah Parsons?
So your white whale, Joe, Micah Parsons.
My football Juan Soto.
You've been trying to get to the Eagles
Yep.
for years now. No, I don't want this dude within 100 miles of my football team. This dude is an annoying, overrated Cowboy loser. He is. I think Hugh's been right about Micah Parsons for a while now. I don't think Micah Parsons is like this great generational talent like that does everything like a Myles Garrett does, like a lot of us like to pretend he is. And then we're talking about what it would cost. 2 first-round picks.
2.
And then you're going to have to pay the guy.
Yep.
I mean, that's insane. I think I don't understand because we put the Twitter poll up. How many people are voting yes for this?
Yes.
My mind is blown. I think you guys are all off your rockers. 2 firsts and a big contract for Micah Parsons. You want him coming here talking about our quarterback with Darius Slay on his podcast after they lose. This guy has an awful loser stink about him. And I think there's so many other options that I would much rather go with to help build this team on defense than Micah Parsons. See, I think you're out of your mind.
You're missing some of the small bullet points that really could help here. One, he could do his podcast right here in the studio. We got plenty of space here for him. He could do his podcast. I don't even want to see him. I mean, come on. Vic Fangio, think about all the great rosters he's had. You give him Micah Parsons?
Well, hold on. Vic Fangio apparently said he couldn't use Hassan Reddick. He gave up on Bryce Huff. Are we sure that Vic Fangio is going to be like, I get Micah Parsons a different kind of player
Joe.
than both of them.
Gave up on him.
Yeah, but I don't jive with the whole Vic Fangio and Micah Parsons thing.
Sometimes you got to push your chips in. 2021, Vic Fangio's on the other side of a trade. He was with the Broncos. The Rams had gotten close. Remember, the Rams got to the Super Bowl and lost. They had gotten close. They were in the playoffs the next couple years, and they pushed their chips in to get Von Miller, and he helped that team win a Super Bowl. 215-592-9494. All right, let's quickly hear from Herman Edwards. He was on ESPN Radio yesterday talking about this very situation. So the Cowboys trade Parsons. Obviously, they should. I think Eagles should offer 2-1s. Here is Herm on ESPN Radio going back and forth about the idea of, maybe they'll move Parsons.
I am of the belief with tomorrow's trade deadline, they should be looking to move Micah Parsons.
Yeah.
Not because he's not a great player. No. We know he's great. But what are we going to do? We're going to hand out a lot of money to a third player now with issues on the coaching staff, with issues on offense, defense, especially all of it. Like, at some point, if you're heading for a high draft pick, you get another high draft pick. That's how you start to reboot it. Would you be considering that?
And there's no doubt. And I think if you're Jerry, and that's probably hard for Jerry because, he gets tied into some of his players. He likes being around star players. But now it's about, how do I fix this football team? Because there's some fixing that needs to be done. And, they're in a division now, lo and behold, where everyone's staring up at Washington Commanders. Who would have thunk it?
Who would have thunk it? How about this? Who would have they're in a bad spot, and we got the get-out-of-jail-free card. Take our next two first. We'll take Micah Parsons. 215-592-9494.
Is this the same guy that a few years ago was like, I don't know, this Jalen Hurts guy. Is it the system? Is it the team? This it's like
same guy.
And you hear the way he's talking about his own quarterback, Dak Prescott, in Dallas. This guy
I didn't say he wasn't goofy.
No, but he rots teams. That Cowboys locker room has a rot in it.
Cancer.
But that Cowboys locker room's had rot for a long time.
Well, but they put together a lot of good seasons, and now all of a sudden this year things are kind of piling up on him a little bit.
And guess what? They haven't
won. He's a part of the circus, Joe.
They also can't win without him on the field. I think they were 3-2 when he left. They haven't won since.
We can win without him on the field.
Yeah, we can. Well, hold on. We could beat the Jaguars, and we could beat the Browns, and we could beat the Giants without him.
And the Bengals.
Okay.
Bengals.
That's a decent one. But I want to.
And the Cowboys next week. With them on the other side.
I want to go beat the Rams in a couple weeks. I want to beat the Ravens with Lamar. I want to beat the Lions.
You're trying to bring Lane Johnson's son here.
No, you guys want to try to go win the Super Bowl with Bryce Huff rushing the quarterback. I want to get a real pass rusher.
I think I can do that.
Yeah,
you can get other pass rushers. Why does it have to be 2 firsts and a huge contract for Micah?
He's my white whale.
He's not worth it.
I don't know about that. 215-592-9494. Your reaction to this. Trade deadline is today. I think the Eagles should up the ante. Call the Cowboys. I know it's awkward, Hugh. You're right. They're a rival and all that. Just put it on the table. 2 first-round picks for Micah. I'd make them turn it down.